The hidden logic behind love. Why does someone feel drawn to you so deeply, sometimes almost irresistibly? Is it really your personality, your appearance, or your charm? Or could there be something far more powerful unfolding beneath the surface, something invisible, unconscious, and ancient? According to Carl Jung, love is never random. What we often describe as sudden chemistry, fate, or destiny is, in reality, the outcome of deep psychological forces moving quietly within the human psyche. Attraction, in Jung's view, follows an inner logic shaped not by chance, but by the unconscious mind. What feels spontaneous is rarely spontaneous at all. Jung believed that every powerful emotional bond is guided by structures formed long before two people ever meet. These structures are built from childhood experiences, emotional wounds, unmet needs, and forgotten aspects of the self. When two people encounter each other, love does not begin at the surface, it ignites in the depths, where conscious awareness rarely reaches. To understand why someone falls in love with you, Jung argued, we must stop looking at romance as a purely personal experience and start seeing it as a psychological event. Love is not just about who you are. It is about what you awaken in another person. Love is not an accident. Modern culture often romanticizes love as a magical coincidence, a spark that ignites without explanation. Jung challenged this idea directly. For him, even the most sudden attraction obeys an internal order. The unconscious mind is constantly seeking balance, growth, and wholeness. Love becomes one of its most powerful tools. Behind every intense attraction lies a silent architecture of the psyche. We are drawn to certain people not because they are objectively right for us, but because they resonate with something unresolved within us. The unconscious recognizes something familiar, something needed, something missing, and responds with emotion. This is why love can feel irrational. You may find yourself inexplicably attracted to someone who does not fit your logical preferences. You may feel a sense of recognition as if you have known them forever. You may feel compelled, even obsessed, without being able to explain why. Jung would say this is not madness, it is meaning trying to surface, projection, seeing ourselves in others at. The core of Jung's theory of love is the concept of projection. Each of us carries hidden images within our psyche, parts of ourselves that were never fully developed, never accepted, or never allowed expression. These parts do not disappear. They retreat into the unconscious, where they continue to influence our behavior and desires. When we meet someone who seems to embody one of these hidden aspects, something powerful happens. We project that inner image onto them. We don't just see the person standing before us, we see a reflection of our own unconscious self. This is why attraction can feel overwhelming. Imagine someone who has spent their life being cautious, controlled, emotionally reserved. When they encounter someone expressive, spontaneous, and emotionally open, they may feel intensely drawn to them. That attraction is not just admiration, it is recognition. The other person represents a part of themselves that has been suppressed. The unconscious responds with urgency. Jung emphasized that when projection occurs, we are not truly seeing the other person. We are seeing ourselves, our potential, our longing, our unfinished inner work reflected back at us. Love, in this sense, becomes a mirror. Reason 1. You represent something they lack. One of the deepest reasons someone falls in love with you, according to Jung, is that you represent something they do not yet possess within themselves. This is not simply the idea that opposites attract. It is far more profound. Opposites attract because they reveal what is missing. A highly rational person may be drawn to someone emotionally intuitive. A disciplined individual may be fascinated by someone carefree. An introvert may fall deeply for an extrovert, but this attraction is not about balance. It is about development. The unconscious seeks growth. It is drawn to qualities that can help the individual evolve toward wholeness. When someone falls in love with you, they may not consciously realize it, but you symbolize a quality they need to integrate into themselves. This is why love can feel so urgent and consuming. The psyche believes it has found something essential. However, Jung warned that this dynamic carries danger. If the person does not recognize that what they admire in you is something they must develop within themselves, the relationship can become dependent. Instead of growth, love turns into attachment. Instead of integration, it becomes obsession. And when the illusion breaks, the love may collapse. The fragility of projected love projection creates intensity, but it also creates fragility. When someone loves you primarily for what you represent rather than who you are, they are loving an image, not a person. At first, everything feels magical. You seem perfect to them. You appear almost unreal, but no human being can sustain a projection forever. Eventually, your humanity emerges, your flaws, contradictions, limitations. When this happens, disappointment often follows. Jung observed that many relationships fail not because love disappears, but because the projection dissolves. The person realizes that you are not the idealized image they unconsciously created. What once felt divine now feels ordinary, even frustrating. This is why so many relationships begin with euphoria and end in confusion. They were not built on mutual understanding, but on unconscious fantasy. Love as psychological necessity. Despite these dangers, Jung did not view projection as a mistake. On the contrary, he believed it was psychologically necessary. Without projection, the unconscious would have no way to communicate its needs to consciousness. Love, in this sense, becomes a message. When someone falls in love with you, their psyche is signaling that something within them wants to awaken. You are not the cause of this awakening, you are the catalyst. This is also why heartbreak can feel devastating. Losing someone is not just losing a person. It is losing access to a part of oneself that had begun to surface. Jung believed that the task of maturity is not to avoid projection, but to become conscious of it. When we recognize what we are projecting onto others, we reclaim that energy and begin the process of individuation, the journey toward psychological wholeness. This is where love stops being illusion and starts becoming growth. In the next part, we will go even deeper into Jung's psychology of attraction by exploring the powerful archetypes of the anima and animus, the inner masculine and feminine images that shape whom we fall in love with, and why some connections feel almost destined. Anima, animus, and the archetype we fall for. If projection explains why attraction begins. Jung's concepts of the anima and animus explain why it feels so powerful, intimate, and almost destined. These ideas take us deeper into the unconscious and reveal why some connections feel immediate, irrational, and emotionally overwhelming, far beyond what logic or surface compatibility could explain. According to Carl Jung, every human being carries within them an unconscious image of the opposite gender. For men, this inner image is called the anima, representing the unconscious feminine. For women, it is the animus, representing the unconscious masculine. These are not stereotypes or social roles. They are deep psychological archetypes, primordial patterns that shape how we experience love, desire, and intimacy. The anima and animus are formed early in life. They are influenced by our earliest emotional bonds, especially with parents or caregivers, and by the collective images of masculinity and femininity passed down through culture, myth, and history. Over time, these inner figures become emotionally charged, templates, blueprints that quietly shape whom we find attractive and remember as special. When someone enters our life who resonates with this inner image, attraction can feel immediate and overwhelming. It may feel as though we have known them forever, even if we have only just met. There is often a sense of familiarity, recognition, or destiny that defies explanation. Jung warned, however, that this feeling is not proof of fate or soulmates. It is the psyche recognizing its own inner image reflected in another human being. Reason 2, you awaken an inner archetype. They carry one of the deepest reasons someone falls in love with you is not because of what you consciously do, but because you activate an unconscious archetype they have carried within themselves for years. You may not resemble their inner image in appearance or behavior. What matters is essence. Something about your emotional tone, presence, or way of relating resonates with the anima or animus they have never fully integrated. When this happens, the psyche responds with intensity. This is why attraction can feel irrational. A person may fall deeply in love with you even when the relationship makes little sense on paper. They may feel compelled, inspired, or emotionally shaken by your presence.
Truth
Jung would say that
offers
you have
no
become a symbol in their
comfort.
inner world, a living representation of something sacred, unfinished or forgotten. But here lies the central danger. When someone falls in love through the anima or animus,
At the dawn of
they are
modern
often not seeing you.
progress,
They are seeing the
one
inner image projected onto
philosopher
you.
rejected
You become the
its
screen onto which a
promises.
powerful psychological drama is unfolding. At first, this feels intoxicating. The connection feels deep, meaningful, almost divine. But the intensity does not come from reality, it comes from the unconscious. The illusion of soul recognition. Many people describe anima or animus projections as soul recognition. There is a feeling that the connection transcends time, logic, or circumstance. Jung did not deny the depth of this experience, but he cautioned against misunderstanding it. The sense of destiny arises because the psyche is encountering itself. When the anima or animus is projected, the individual feels more alive, more complete, more whole. Emotions intensify. Creativity awakens. Life feels meaningful again. It is easy to believe that the other person is the source of this transformation, but they are not the source, they are the trigger. The true source lies within. This misunderstanding is why animus-driven relationships often begin with euphoria and end in confusion or disappointment. Once the projection fades, the person is forced to confront a painful realization the other person cannot sustain. The archetype forever. No human can. When the fantasy meets reality as a relationship deepens, reality inevitably intrudes. The person you love reveals flaws, limitations, contradictions, and human needs. They stop behaving like a symbol and start behaving like a person. This is the moment of crisis. If the individual remains unconscious of their projection, disappointment follows. What once felt magical now feels complicated. The person may accuse you of changing when in fact you are simply being real. The love that was built on fantasy begins to fracture under the weight of truth. Jung observed that many passionate relationships fail at this stage, not because love disappears, but because the projection collapses. The psyche can no longer maintain the illusion. This is why some relationships swing violently between idealization and rejection. The partner is either divine or disappointing, perfect or unbearable. There is little room for nuance, because archetypes do not tolerate ambiguity. Love as a catalyst for growth despite the pain that often accompanies projection. Jung did not see it as a failure.
Progress.
On the contrary, he believed
One
projection was essential for psychological growth.
its
Love,
promises.
in Jung's view, is not merely an emotional experience. It is a mechanism of transformation. Every person we fall deeply for becomes a mirror. What we see in them, what fascinates us, terrifies us, or destabilizes us, reveals something about ourselves. Some people awaken our hidden potential. Others expose our deepest fears. Some ignite creativity. Others bring unresolved wounds to the surface. All serve the same purpose. Individuation. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming whole of, integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the self. Love accelerates this process by forcing us to confront what we have disowned within ourselves. When someone falls in love with you, they may believe they are seeing something extraordinary in you, and they are. But the extraordinariness lies in what you awaken inside them. You are not just a person in their story. You are a psychological turning point. Why some relationships are meant to end. Not all relationships are meant to last. Jung was clear about this. Some connections exist only to disrupt old patterns, challenge illusions, and awaken dormant aspects of the self. These relationships can be intense, transformative, and painful. They may leave scars, but they are not mistakes. Jung referred to such encounters as synchronistic events that are not logically caused, yet deeply meaningful. When someone enters your life at precisely the moment they can provoke powerful emotional change, it is not coincidence. It is readiness. The unconscious, Jung believed, arranges meetings when inner change is already underway. This is why some people come into your life, only briefly but change you forever. They were not meant to stay. They were meant to reveal, breaking the cycle of repetition. If projection remains unconscious, it tends to repeat. People find themselves attracted to the same types again and again, replaying similar relationships. Reliving the same disappointments, they may believe they are unlucky in love. Jung would say something else. The unconscious is trying to teach them something they are not yet ready to learn. Until the projected qualities are recognized and integrated, the psyche will continue to seek them externally. Love becomes a loop rather than a journey. Awareness is the turning point. When you understand your projections, your anima, your animus, your patterns, you stop searching for someone to complete you. You begin completing yourself. Love after awareness. When projection becomes conscious, love changes. It becomes quieter, slower, less dramatic, but more real. It is no longer driven by fantasy or fear. It is grounded in mutual recognition rather than unconscious need. You no longer demand that the other person embody your inner image. You allow them to be human. And from that place, genuine intimacy becomes possible. Jung believed that the deepest form of love is not about possession or completion. It is about mutual awakening. Two individuals walking their own paths toward wholeness, occasionally meeting without illusion. In this sense, love is never truly about the other person. It is always a journey back to the self. Individuation, awareness, and the final truth about love of projection explains the beginning of love. And the anima and animus explain its intensity. Then individuation explains its ultimate purpose. For Carl Jung, love was never meant to be an end in itself. It was a psychological event designed to move the individual toward wholeness. Every deep attraction, every heartbreak, every transformative relationship serves a single hidden aim: to bring the unconscious into consciousness. Individuation is not self-improvement. It is not becoming better, happier, or more successful. It is becoming whole. It is the integration of the parts of the psyche that were once denied, repressed, or projected onto others. Love becomes one of the most powerful forces in this process because it bypasses logic and speaks directly to the unconscious. This is why love feels uncontrollable. When someone falls in love with you, they often feel as though something has taken over them. Their thoughts change. Their priorities shift. Their emotional world rearranges itself around your presence. Jung would say that this happens because love activates deep unconscious material that can no longer be ignored. Love destabilizes because it reveals. Love as a mirror, not a destination. One of Jung's most unsettling ideas is that love is not primarily about union with another person, but about confrontation with oneself. The beloved becomes a mirror. What you admire in them points to qualities you long to develop. What triggers you reveals wounds you have not healed. What terrifies you exposes parts of yourself you have avoided. This is why love often brings anxiety alongside joy. When someone falls in love with you, they are not just responding to your presence. They are responding to what you awaken inside them. You become the surface upon which their inner conflicts, desires, and unlived potentials are projected. And the same is true in reverse. The people you fall in love with are rarely chosen consciously. They are chosen by your psyche. They carry something you need, something your inner world is ready to confront. This is why some relationships feel inevitable, even when they are painful. Why heartbreak hurts so deeply. Heartbreak is not only the loss of a person, it is the loss of a future self that had begun to take shape. When a relationship ends, especially one fueled by projection, the pain comes from more than separation. It comes from disintegration. The psyche had invested energy, hope, and meaning into the other person. When they leave, that energy collapses inward. People often describe heartbreak as losing themselves. Jung would say this is literally true. The self that was emerging through the relationship has been interrupted, but this interruption is not meaningless. Heartbreak forces consciousness. It demands reflection. It asks painful questions. Why was I drawn to this person? What did they represent? What part of myself did I hand over to them? Without these questions, heartbreak becomes trauma. With them, it becomes transformation, repetition until awareness. Jung observed that people often repeat the same romantic patterns throughout their lives. They fall for similar personalities, recreate familiar dynamics, and relive the same disappointments. This repetition is not bad luck. It is instruction. The unconscious repeats until it is understood. If someone continues to fall in love with emotionally unavailable partners, the psyche may be confronting unresolved abandonment. If someone is repeatedly drawn to controlling figures, it may reflect an unintegrated relationship with authority or power. Love becomes a loop until awareness breaks it. This is why awareness is the turning point in Jungian psychology. Once a person understands their projections, the anima or animus they carry, and the patterns they repeat, love begins to change. Attraction loses its compulsive quality. The pull becomes softer, more conscious. This does not mean love disappears. It means love matures, love after projection. When projection becomes conscious, something remarkable happens.
At the dawn of
The intensity of
modern
fantasy fades,
progress,
but intimacy deepens.
one
The other person is no longer required to
its
embody perfection.
promises.
They are allowed to be human. This is the birth of real love. Real love, in Jung's view, is not ecstatic or dramatic. It is grounded. It does not promise salvation. It does not demand completion. It is two individuals meeting as whole beings, not as fragments searching for missing parts. This kind of love is quieter, but more resilient. It survives disappointment because it was never built on illusion. It allows distance without panic and closeness without possession. It respects individuality rather than consuming it.